Welcome, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into the book of Job.
Oh, the book of Job.
Yeah. We're looking to find those valuable messages it holds, especially for those who, maybe want to strengthen their faith and also live a life full of compassion.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible story.
It is.
It explores faith and suffering.
Right.
And it's something that still has meaning to believers, even all these centuries later.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. And to really get started, let's talk of Job himself.
Yeah.
This guy, he's described as, a perfect and upright man.
Right.
Someone who just really embodied what faith was all about.
He did. He did.
He feared God. He avoided evil. And he had so many blessings. I mean, he was wealthy, had a huge family.
He was considered the greatest man in all the East.
He was.
Yeah.
But then things really take a turn.
They do.
And it's not even because of anything he did.
That's the amazing thing about Job's story, right?
Right.
It's that his piety, his goodness is tested.
Yes.
In the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Not because of his own failures, but because all these terrible things just happened to him.
Right. Calamities.
Calamities that seem so unfair.
They do seem random and unfair.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this.
Okay.
So we have Satan, who's basically making this bet with God.
Right.
Yeah.
He says Job's only good because he's got all this stuff.
Exactly.
All these blessings. He's
Yeah.
like, take it away and he'll curse you to your face.
And, it really makes us think, even today,
It does?
is our faith really, rooted in loving God?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just because of, the good things we get?
Right. Is it conditional?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's such a central caution.
It is.
For any believer, really.
Right.
What does it really mean to have faith?
Yeah.
And, we see with Job, real faith isn't about, just having good things happen to you.
Right.
It's about holding on even when everything is falling apart.
Even when everything's falling apart. And things really do.
They do.
I mean, it starts with his livestock.
Right. Loses all his animals.
Then his servants.
Loses all his servants.
And then the worst part, all 10 of his children.
The 10 of his children, yeah. It's just one blow after another.
It is.
Each one more devastating than the last.
It's just awful.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine that kind of loss.
Wow. It really is.
But what's amazing is how he responds.
It's incredible.
He doesn't blame God.
Right.
He doesn't get angry. He just says, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed to be the name of the Lord.
That's powerful.
Isn't it?
It really is. That statement, that really shows his character.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not like he's just blindly accepting it all.
Right.
He understands God.
He gets it. Even in these awful times, God has a purpose.
Yeah.
And even when his wife tells him to just give up.
Curse God and die.
Right. Curse God and die.
Yeah.
He refuses.
He does.
Yeah. He gets it.
He does.
His faith isn't about what he gets out of it.
Yeah.
It's something much deeper.
It really is. And that's really what makes this story such a great example for believers today.
It is.
It's not about pretending, suffering doesn't hurt.
Right.
Or, denying those feelings.
It's about trusting God even when you don't understand.
Yeah, even when you don't understand. But Satan's not convinced.
Oh, no.
He's like, I'm going to double down.
He basically says if Job himself suffers,
Yeah.
then he'll break.
Exactly. And that's when things get even worse.
They do. Poor Job.
He gets these painful boils
Yeah.
all over his body.
I mean, it's awful.
It's excruciating.
It's
I
screwed
mean, imagine, sitting in ashes and just scraping your skin
just to get a little relief.
with a potsherd.
Yeah. It's hard to even think about.
It's just this really stark image of desperation.
It is.
It makes you think, how can anyone hold on to hope when even basic relief is impossible?
Right. It's the worst.
Yeah.
And it's in that moment
Yeah.
that his wife, just beside herself, urges him
Yeah.
to
Right.
curse God and die.
I mean, I can't really blame her.
I know, right?
When you see that kind of loss, it makes sense to question God.
It's human nature, really. We want answers.
Right. We want to blame someone
Yeah.
or something. But Job doesn't do that.
No.
He asks, should we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil?
It makes you think about how we see God.
It does.
Do we just want the good times? Or are we with him even when things are bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when Job's friends show up.
They do.
But they don't come to give answers.
No, they just sit with him
in his pain.
for a whole week.
Yeah, 7 days and nights.
They don't say a word.
It's really powerful.
Isn't it? I mean, is it really comforting, though?
It's a good question.
Or are they just afraid to really face what he's going through?
You can really feel the tension.
You can.
And then Job breaks the silence.
He does.
It's raw.
It is raw and honest.
Yeah. You can feel his anguish.
Yeah. He curses the day he was born.
Yeah. Questions why he's even alive.
Yeah. His words are so hard to hear.
They are.
But they also move you.
They do.
He compares his life to a shadow.
Yeah, a breath of wind.
Yeah. Like a hidden birth.
Yeah.
He's really wrestling with these huge questions
Well,
about life.
Of suffering.
About why we're even here.
It's something we all think about.
We do.
Even today. And that's when his friends finally start talking.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it all.
Each one with their own view of suffering.
And God's justice.
Right. And the first one to speak up is Eliphaz.
Eliphaz.
Yeah. And he, he's pretty gentle at first.
Yeah.
He says, look, truly innocent people, they don't suffer like this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Job has done something wrong.
Oh.
Something he needs to, admit to and turn away from.
So he's saying Job's suffering because of sin.
Right. I mean, back then, a lot of people believed hardship was like a punishment from God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But is it really that simple, though? Can you always say this happened because you did that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and Eliphaz, he's really sticking to that traditional wisdom.
Okay.
That suffering is like God trying to correct you.
Interesting.
And he even talks about this vision he had.
A vision.
Yeah.
What was it about?
Oh, it was scary.
Oh.
Yeah, he sees this spirit, this figure in the night.
Oh, wow.
And it really shows you how powerful God is and how little we understand.
Right.
And that's his point.
Okay.
He's saying, Job, you might think you're good.
Yeah.
But none of us can really say we're better than God.
It's like he's saying, who are we to judge God's justice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he uses this really strong image to make his point.
Oh.
Yeah, he compares people to, those who live in houses of clay.
Clay houses.
Yeah, just crushed before a moth.
Wow.
It's like we're so fragile.
Yeah.
Against all these forces we can't control.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is.
Okay, so then we have Bildad, and he comes in with a different take.
Yeah.
He's wondering why Job is complaining so much.
Yeah, for so long.
Yeah.
And he reminds Job that God is fair.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, good people will be rewarded.
So Bildad's really focusing on God's fairness.
He is.
Like, ultimately, good will win.
Yeah, and he tells Job to look to the past.
Okay.
To learn from those who came before.
Yeah.
And to find comfort in God's promises.
So it's like Eliphaz is saying, Job, maybe you sinned.
Right.
And Bildad's saying, no, God is just.
Yeah, just look back and you'll see.
It's interesting how they're all trying to explain this in their own way.
I know. It's like they're trying to fit it all into how they understand God.
Yeah.
But none of it really clicks with Job.
No.
He's still hurting.
Yeah.
Still questioning why this is happening to him.
Right. He's lived a good life.
He has.
Why is this happening?
Yeah, it's like he's saying, I hear you, but you don't get it.
You don't understand my pain.
Right. And so he pushes back.
Against their arguments.
Yeah. He talks about how powerful God is.
Mm-hmm.
How he can't possibly fight against that.
Right.
He even says, I am but a man. How can I understand God?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he feels helpless.
Yeah.
And, even the most faithful people,
mm-hmm.
they can have doubts.
Especially when things are this bad.
Right.
And then Zophar jumps in.
Oh, yeah.
And he's even harsher than the other two.
He is. He says Job's being self-righteous.
What?
Yeah. He's like, you're just making speeches to make yourself look good.
Oh, wow.
Like you're innocent.
Zophar's really judging him.
He is.
Yeah.
And he even says that God's holding back.
Holding back.
Yeah, he's like, Job, you're getting off easy.
Compared to what you deserve?
Exactly.
Wow.
And he uses this really strong language.
Okay.
He compares God's knowledge to heaven and hell.
Heaven and hell.
Yeah, like we can't even imagine how much God knows.
He's saying, Job, you're just a human trying to understand something way bigger.
Yeah, you gotta stop questioning and just accept God's will.
But it's like he's shutting down any real conversation with God.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember.
Yeah.
The book doesn't say Zophar is right. In fact, later on, even Job's friends realize they don't have all the answers.
Right.
They admit they haven't really understood what Job's going through.
So they were wrong.
Yeah. And that's when Elihu steps in.
Okay. Elihu.
He's been listening this whole time.
Yeah.
And he's not happy with how it's going.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What does he do?
Well, he doesn't just say the same things as the other three.
Okay.
He's got this new energy.
Okay.
He challenges Job and his friends.
Wow.
Yeah, he says God is bigger than all of us,
Mhm.
and he doesn't have to explain himself. It's like he's saying, we're just humans with limited understanding.
Well, yeah.
Compared to God's wisdom.
Right.
Okay, so instead of saying, did Job deserve this?
Well, Elihu's focused on how God talks to us.
Yeah. He uses all sorts of ways.
Right.
Not just rewards and punishments.
So it's about growing.
Yeah.
And changing.
And getting closer to God.
And that's really important.
And
right.
It is.
I mean, Elihu's saying suffering isn't always a bad thing.
Right.
It can be a way for God to get our attention.
Yeah.
To make us better.
And to make our faith stronger.
Yeah. It's like he's saying there's a bigger plan.
There is.
That we might not see right now.
Right.
And Elihu also says there's hope.
He does.
Even in all this.
Yeah, he believes that if Job admits he was wrong.
Yeah.
And repents and follows God's will.
Then he'll experience God's mercy.
Yeah, and he'll be blessed again.
So it's not just about, accepting suffering. It's about seeing how it can change us.
Exactly.
For the better.
Yeah.
And remember, the book of Job, it doesn't give us all the answers.
No, it doesn't.
About why we suffer.
Right.
It's more about how we deal with that mystery and learning to trust God even when we don't understand.
Yeah, it's a story that encourages us to talk to God honestly.
Right.
To wrestle with our doubts and fears.
Yeah.
And to really try to understand even when we're hurting.
And, you said earlier that Job's friends eventually admit they don't have the answers.
They do.
So where does that leave Job?
Well, this is where things get really amazing.
You okay?
It's not one of Job's friends who answers him.
No.
It is God himself.
Wow.
And he doesn't give him, easy answers or just say, everything happens for a reason.
Okay.
He asks Job questions.
He does.
Yeah, and they're all about creation.
Creation.
Yeah. Like, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Or have you commanded the morning since your days began? Caused the dawn to know its place?
Wow.
He's pointing to all these incredible things in nature.
Yeah.
All these complexities that we just can't grasp.
Like you think, Job, you're questioning my justice?
Right. Exactly. It's like, you think you understand.
Right.
But your understanding is so small.
Yeah.
Compared to mine.
So it's not about getting an answer to the why.
Yeah.
It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Right.
All that God has done.
Yeah. As humans, we try to put God in a box. Like, we can understand his actions with our tiny brains.
Right.
But God's on a whole other level.
Yeah.
His wisdom and power are just beyond us.
So does Job get mad?
No, actually, it's the opposite.
Oh.
He realizes how bold he's been.
Questioning God.
Yeah. He sees how small he is.
Compared to God.
And he just accepts God's power.
That's a big moment.
It is.
I mean, it's not about ignoring your doubts.
No.
Or pretending you have it all figured out.
It's about letting go.
Trusting God even when it's hard.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest messages of this book, I think.
Yeah.
Learning to live with faith and mystery.
Together.
Yeah, it's not blind obedience.
Right.
Or pretending suffering doesn't exist.
It's about choosing to believe.
Yeah, in God's goodness.
In his love.
Even when things are tough.
So Job recognizes God's power.
He does.
But does he find peace?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
God actually tells Job's friends they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He says Job has spoken rightly about him.
So Job was right all along.
Yeah. And then God blesses Job.
He does?
Yeah, he gives him a new family.
Oh, wow.
More wealth. And lots of years of peace and happiness.
Wow.
It's like a sign of God's grace.
Like God saying, I'm still here for you.
Right. Even after all that.
It reminds me how God never abandons us.
He doesn't, even in our darkest times.
Job's story really shows us that faith doesn't stop bad things from happening.
It doesn't.
But it helps us get through them.
With hope.
And knowing that even after suffering, there can be a new beginning.
Absolutely. But it's interesting that God rebuked Job's friends.
I was thinking about that too. I mean, they were just trying to help.
I know, right? They wanted to make him feel better. But I think it shows us something important.
About what?
About how we try to comfort people who are hurting.
Okay.
They tried to explain it all away.
Like there was a simple answer.
Yeah, like they understood God's justice.
Right.
But they ended up making Job feel worse.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't good enough.
So what should we do instead? How can we help people without doing that?
Well, I think one of the best things we learned from Job is just to be there.
Just to be there.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't need to explain things.
Or give advice.
Right. Just listen.
And understand.
And be a shoulder to cry on.
It's like you said, sometimes the best thing is just to be quiet.
Yeah. Just let them know they're not alone.
And that we care.
Exactly.
That's really beautiful.
It is. This whole story about suffering,
Yeah.
it ends up teaching us how to connect with each other.
How to be there for each other.
Yeah. And it reminds us that even in the darkest times,
there's always love.
Always compassion.
This deep dive into the book of Job has been really eye-opening.
It has.
It's made us think about faith and suffering in a new way.
Yeah, and it's given us some ideas on how to help others who are hurting.
It really has.
Yeah.
Job's story, it's powerful.
It is.
It speaks to people even today.
Yeah. It gives us guidance.
And hope.
Even when we don't have all the answers.
So let's think about Job.
Mm-hmm.
And ask ourselves, how can we make our faith stronger?
Yeah.
How can we be more compassionate?
And how can we learn to trust God's plan even when we don't understand?
The book of Job, it doesn't give us all the answers.
No, it doesn't.
But it makes us think.
And talk.
About suffering.
And the power of hope.